getting an answer. He's probably busy signing. We're live in Africa at a junction. Big junction of roads. Spider web. Hi everybody, I think we're live too. I think you're with us this afternoon, and a little bit of a windy with cloud coming in autumn afternoon here in Thornybush Game Reserve. Beautiful afternoon actually. Temperature's just perfect. The wind is going to play a little bit of havoc. I think we have a cold front moving in, so we're going to see, because we're not really supposed to have cloud at this time of the year. I think we got cloud because yesterday I said we're due to have clear days without clouds. Because I said it yesterday, nature's proving the opposite. My name is Mark, and with me on camera is Brian. Rob is in final control. And we're heading out for the next couple of hours here in Thornybush, and we're going to try and find you some of the wonderful creatures that live here. And I'm going to try and explain to you about their lives and the dynamics involved in living in a self-contained, in a kind of game reserve that we're in right now. Now we're in the southeastern corner of Thornybush, and most of our movement is sort of to the north and to the northwest of our camp. Our camp is just behind us. I've come down here because I've heard of some elephant tracks in the area, and I'm going to go and have a look at them. And we're going to leave our leopard for a little bit later. Now, from the last couple of days, looking at leopard tracks in the area. There were some leopard tracks from a couple of days ago. We didn't have anything fresh yesterday, and for the first time this morning I managed to pick up some fresh tracks. I followed the tracks as far as I could. I did a couple of loops that were because I had some red herrings, because a cat is a cat is a cat, and ended up finding, not her, but finding other animals reacting to her presence. And the bush was quite thick, and I knew she was in there. She was so close, but of course we couldn't get in there. It was very, very thick, and I'm hoping that she sort of bedded down for the day. And very nearby is a big watering hole, big water hole, big natural little pan. It doesn't make sense, did it? A big natural little pan.
That's okay.
Is that okay? A big natural little pan.
I'll accept it.
Okay. And at this big natural little pan, I'm expecting this leopard to come and drink some water later. We were doing a little bit of filming and stuff this afternoon. I'll tell you why shortly. And I found where she crossed the river. It was a track that I didn't take. Found where she crossed the river, but it doesn't really matter because I found her tracks when she came across the river to the side of the river. When I was making a big detour around, coming back on this road past this junction that we're on now, she was actually at another junction. So I think it's one of those things here in Africa. You know, you get to a place where we are now. We've got one road going that way to the north. We've got a road going to the west. We've come in from the south, and there's a road going off here to the east. So we're at a four-way junction, and the dilemma is always, which way? If I go that way, what am I going to miss there? And if I go there, what am I going to miss there? And that's just a dilemma that we face all the time. This is Africa, that's what happens. And sometimes they're a good decision. Sometimes I get a bird flying that way, and I think, okay, well, the bird's flying that way, I'll go that way. Sometimes I find tracks of an animal that tell me where to go, but sometimes, as now, I don't have a clear idea. There's no tracks of anything in particular that I want to follow. There are tracks that I want to go and look for. I'm going to go to the right. We're going to head just a little bit further east, which will bring us close to the eastern boundary, and then we can make our way to the west. And a little bit later this afternoon, in about an hour or two, we'll make our way back to where that big little water hole is, and we'll see if she's going to maybe make an appearance. And the key thing there will be to sit and listen and see if there are any birds making a noise, any monkeys shouting. Oops, sorry. The one thing against our favor, one thing that's against us at the moment is this little bit of wind, because this kind of weather, a leopard could have moved already, but we'll have to see about that. Also, there's not much moving around. There are not many birds flying around. It's a bit of a cold front moving in, but let's go and see what we can find. It's always exciting in a stretch of bushveld like this. Around the next bend there could be anything, could be something we've never seen before. For me it could be a spider or a praying mantis, or it could be a flower or a tree, but hoping against all hope that it's a big grey animal with big ears, or even a big grey animal with two big horns, or even a small tawny coloured animal that's got big claws and big teeth. Let's go and find an animal. Now, the other thing that is exciting this afternoon, no, go ahead, Rob. And I'll get back to the exciting thing this later. Thanks, Rob. The one thing that I wanted to mention, the other exciting thing about this drive, as opposed to our previous couple of drives, which was startups and things, was the fact that our emails are up and running. And the first email to come in is from a bunch of people that I really had a good time with a while ago. And I'm thinking this is Jackie's class from Decatur, Illinois. Hi, kids. And welcome back to the Jigger. And I'm hoping that this is the same group of kids that I had on our school safari a long time ago. So it's great to have you with us. It'll be fun to have any questions from you. It's crossing a little drainage line. There's a little patch of water. And always a nice place to look for animal tracks. Crossing these sandy, dry riverbeds. So is that Mrs. Mack's class in Decatur, Illinois, I think, Jackie? No, not yet. But Rob just... Okay. Hello, Nicole. I wonder if this is Nicole Solomon. I wonder if this is Nicole from Germany. Wants me to find a dung beetle. Hello, Nicole. Nice to see you back with us. And yes, it is Nicole in Germany. Nicole wants me to find a dung beetle. I think it'd be easier to find a what can you think? A diamond in the rough. I think it would be easier to, well, let's put it this way. Dung beetles this time of the year are pretty scarce. I found a couple that are just reaching the end of their life. This is an amazing thing about an extended summer. We've had, I believe, some places in the northern hemisphere having a little bit of a late winter. Well, we're having a bit of a late summer. I can't call it summer because the temperatures already dropped considerably. And go up there and look for elephant. We'll see if there's anything coming across this road. I bumped into an anti-poaching patrol and they said that they'd seen some elephant tracks down here. So Nicole wanted to see a dung beetle, and unfortunately for most of the insects at this time of the year, it's too cold, it's getting too dry, and a lot of them die off. A lot of insects are only around for the wet season, and once the dry period comes along with all the dust, it actually becomes deadly for insects to be moving around, not only from a temperature perspective but also from a dust perspective. And while I'm chatting to you about why that is, we'll just stop here at this big little waterhole. This dam. I should be able to pick up the dam. You know how it is with maps, you can never fold them properly. Could be called Lang Dam. I think. The pan I want to get back to later is called Nilotica pan. Are you looking at my message? Oh, I forgot it's on the microphone. Crinkly paper on the microphone. Not good, not good, not good. Alright, I'm still sort of putting maps together, and it's taking a bit of time. I've got some different tape now. At the moment I only had brown tape, as you can see, and so I could only tape it at the back, but I bought some clear tape today which will allow me to piece it together better. But there's a little piece missing here, and camp is down here. So this whole area that extends even further on my big fold up piece together jigsaw puzzle map, this is the area of Thornybush. And at the moment, this is the area we're concentrating in. We've got a lot of area to cover over the next 3 months, but unfortunately for now we have to stick around here because we are just starting up, and there are pieces of equipment that need to go up on the mountain for us to be able to get further up north. But if you can see, can you see my fingers? I'm on that camera again. Okay, go to that camera again. Okay, that camera now. See, this is the fun thing about this vehicle now, is we've got multiple cameras. So, our camp is down the bottom here, which is almost sort of the bottom southeastern corner of Thornybush. This is the Timbavati River. It's also right down here in the south. And for the summer months, the animals all move. It's not really a migration as much as it is seasonal movement. The animals have moved mostly up into the northern parts of Thornybush, and as the season dries out, they're going to be coming back towards the Timbavati River. So I'm hoping we're going to get a lot more game coming down here. And we are over here, right close to the edge of the eastern boundary, and it looks like it says Lang Dam, which is this one. Now, I will improve this, maybe sort of have 1 page, 2 page, 3 page, so that I don't have to unfold the whole thing, but I can just take it out in sections and we can look at it in sections. And it'll be a case of us all learning the same thing, learning names. I mean, I know my way around the immediate area already. I've been here a couple of days, but I don't know the names of the roads yet, and it'll be important to do that. And looking at the map always helps. One thing about stopping and switching off is listening for elephants. But Nicole, if I find any fresh dung, I'll look at the dung and see if I can find any scarabs. I understand, Rob. So, it's stopping like this and listening helps me to identify places where there might be elephant by hearing trees and bushes and branches breaking, trees being broken. Sometimes the tree that's being pushed over can sound like a rifle. Hello, Ruth, in Florida. How are you? I bet you're missing Fabienne. Ruth wants to know, this is Florida in USA, and Ruth wants to know if there's any warthog here. Yes, there are, Ruth. We haven't seen any on camera. I have seen a couple running away. One running away yesterday, and this morning, when we got to the point where I had tracked the leopard to a particular area and isolated it and realized where it was, we stopped, we switched off, and I could hear the monkeys shouting at it. And at the same time, a duiker ran out of the bush, alarmed, obviously been disturbed by the leopard, and then just behind us, or just further down the road, was a family of warthog that also ran out of that block of bushveld, also picking up on the monkeys, alarming, realizing that there's danger, and that knowing that the sound that the vervet monkeys were making was a sound to say that there's a leopard in the area, and with a female warthog and her cub, no, they're not cubs or pups, they're piglets, with her piglets wanting to get out onto the openness of the road because there's less chance of being caught out on the openness of the road. We didn't catch her on camera. She was a little bit further down the road than we wanted. But there are warthogs, and I'm sure over time we will see them. We've got 3 months to find you a lot of animals, but we've also got 3 months to follow the lives of certain individuals that I would like to find individual cats, lion and leopard, as well as to meet up with families of elephant that are resident here at Thornybush. The elephants here at Thornybush are not like the elephants elsewhere that have freedom of movement into Kruger. These elephants are resident in Thornybush. They have a large enough area to move in. It's not as though they're confined. They have an exceptionally large area to cover, and because of that we don't really know where they are at any one time. We can only guess. So we're almost touching the eastern boundary now. We're going to cross the river again. Actually, maybe we won't. Maybe we won't cross the river. I don't know. We'll see. I'll think about it. I think we might just go back to that big junction and I'll take another road because oops.
I'm so glad I'm on this side.
I'm spotted now. Alright, we just have to try and get out of this mud this way. It's not working. I'm getting covered in mud. Ah! No, we don't have the back cameras, I told you. Alright, I tried to mention it, but maybe we're busy. We just can't get the back cameras on. Wow, look at me now. Can you see me? My only set of clothes.
Yeah, let me get you on this camera.
I'll have to get out and show you. I got it's a little bit of mud.
It's okay.
Little boys love mud.
Boys too.
Except we also got another problem at the back. Okay, I'll show you a flower, ladies. But please don't mistake this for a flower for the ladies because it's not a very pleasant flower. It's pretty, but it's not worth presenting it to you as
It's decent.
yeah, it's pretty, but it's lantana. And it is a South American alien invader that is not really good for the bushveld.
Oh, well, there it is.
Oh, and I'm supposed to work on this car tonight, and I've just covered it in mud. It's okay. We're going to put the decals on, the Wild Earth decals. So, the Altamonte Christian School. Hello. To all of you too. It's a school I've had contact with in the past as well. But is that... I wonder if that's the same school, because the other one was the Brush College School in Decatur. I don't know. I need my memory refreshed. Lovely clay. Covered in clay. I know what I should do. You can see this. Oops. this dead tree here. I'm going to take this off for now because I'm out of the bed. Oh, and I put mud all over the seats. It's not much mud. Can you see the mud here? All the way up there. That's why there's mud, but it's not from me rubbing, it's from elephants rubbing.
Lies.
I'm just trying to be an elephant. I'm rubbing the mud off. I wish I could show you this. It's given it character. The jigger has now got character. I think this is the first time the paint job is going to have, the new paint job is, looks quite cool. But it can be hard to clean. Look at me. Okay, so enough playing around. What was that? There's a big bird that just flew out of this tree. The African hawk eagle's nest here, but that was too big. It was too big for an African hawk eagle.
Just behind this bush we go before, just see it hovering.
Yeah. I think that was so much fun. We'll do that again. We'll go the other way. Yeah, it's the two African hawk eagles again. Right, so this is the edge of Thornybush, everyone. But I am going to go back through that mud because I am going to look around for an elephant that was reported to be around here somewhere. Pardon? Yeah, quite a glare. And I've just had a shower. Well, it's okay. Mud is a cleansing thing. People pay a lot of money to be covered in mud like this. Well, you see, the fault was trying to ride the middle monarchy. The middle monarchy, you know, there's the middle line, because the tires have dug such big ruts, the car's tires made such deep ruts. Somebody's going to go through and get their chassis caught up, with the differential caught up in it. So, Linda, Pepperbird. Hello, Linda. Lovely to hear from you again. Welcome to our Thornybush safari. Wanting to know if there are any sausage trees here in Thornybush. I haven't seen any yet, Linda. There was a sausage tree at the headquarters at Salati on the weekend that still had sausages hanging. I'm not sure. We'll have to explore and look. There's a good possibility. We've got a very good river here, the Timbavati River. There are a number of species of trees that occur along this river that we haven't had before, because they are riparian species. They are trees that like to have their feet in water, and they need some. Well, I suppose, you know, a long time ago this was a permanent river. I think it does become a dry riverbed towards the end of the dry season. There's probably still a lot of water under the surface of the sand, and I'm sure that once the dry season starts and the surface water This appears we're likely to find elephant digging for water. So you didn't get mud, we didn't get any mud on any equipment, did we?
No. It's great, just next.
Good.
Have you noticed this here though? Now we've got two of these.
Oh yes, we've got two. There should only be one of those.
Yeah, so maybe the one for the back camera is...
This is the one that
That's one.
should be somewhere else. Yeah. Those two. That's got power.
Yeah. That side? Yeah, somewhere?
Yes. But is this 5? Is this 5? Or it must be this one. It can't be that. We got.
There we go.
So should we go and do that again with the back camera?
No, why not? Let's do it.
No. Another day.
Finally.
Are you going to push, Brian?
No, thank you.
Okay, I'll just start it up there. Okay, we found out. Thanks, Brian. Figured out why our back camera wasn't working. For those of you joining us for the first time today, this is our office, a mobile office that we drive around Thornybush Private Game Reserve. Thornybush Private Nature Reserve. It's actually TPNR, which is the same as the TPNR where I live, Thornybush Private Nature Reserve. Now, the jigger is equipped with all the broadcast equipment, and we've got some amazing equipment on it. We've got this camera here. You're on this camera? We're on this camera right now, my camera. And then we have our critter cam, our camera that is mostly going to be dedicated to the wildlife, which is this camera here. And I think I need to maybe just wipe its lens, a little bit of dust on it. And then for a really beautiful view of things when we're crossing rivers and we're getting stuck and we're battling with mud and things like that, we've got that camera up there. It makes it fun. I don't know where this road goes. I'm going to test it and see. Okay, Rob probably trying to get hold of me, and there we go. Yeah, go. And a good afternoon to Donna. Donna is also in Florida. It's lovely to know where you are when you send an email. I'm just trying to climb over a tree stump. I couldn't go around it. Donna in Florida. Welcome to Wild Earth and welcome to Thornybush, Donna. Lovely to have a question from you. Wanting to know whether we have any chimpanzees here. Unfortunately, chimpanzees only occur sort of Central, East and West Africa. There are no chimpanzees further south than, I would say, maybe Rwanda and southwestern Tanzania. There are, however, rescued chimps here in South Africa, in fact not too far from here. Just near a town called Nelspruit, between White River and Nelspruit, Hazyview, in that area, in a province called Mpumalanga. Some of you might have seen their cams. There is a place called Chimp Eden, which is a place that has rescued chimps. It's a rescue. We can't go this way because these roads don't exist anymore. Maybe.
It does look like elephants have been through, yeah?
Yeah, it does. But I guess this means we're going to have to turn around.
What's on this side?
It is also an old road and probably goes back to the fence line. Probably an alternative to the muddy patch, but it doesn't look like it's well used. And if the overhanging branches are too much, I think we'll just go back. Yeah, it's too overgrown.
Yeah, it is a bit.
Please bear with me. This is a completely new experience for me, and I'm learning as much as you are. And Rob's just reminding, I do remember Wilder having cams at Chimp Eden, and in fact Rob's just reminding me, or telling me, because I didn't know, I can't say he's reminding me because I didn't know this before, but Rob coming through telling me that at Chimp Eden there was a, what was her name? Nina. There was a chimp named Nina who gave birth live on Wild Earth Cam, one of the Wild Earth cameras, some time ago. One of the first ever live births caught on camera of a chimpanzee. Pardon?
In 3D.
In 3D. Nogal. Nogal, it's a colloquialism. Don't worry about it. Okay, I'm going to climb over tree stumps again. So unfortunately no wild chimpanzees here in South Africa. In fact, there are a couple of countries between here and wild chimps. Just north of South Africa, you've got Botswana and Zimbabwe and Zambia and Malawi. So you've got to go up north of Malawi, north of Angola, till you get to pretty much, I'd say, a few degrees either side of the equator. So south of the equator you've got Zaire and Congo, going on a belt towards through Rwanda into southwestern Tanzania, Lake Tanganyika, places like Mahale Mountains National Park, and then all the way up north into northwestern Uganda, up in Semliki National Park. There's some chimps, and then of course it crossed through to West Africa from there. But unfortunately, of course, their population is dwindling. Sad really, because they're just another tribe of us humans that haven't quite managed to build the things that we do. They do use tools, they have incredible minds and brains. That's very interesting. Karen Carter in Illinois. No road. Karen in Illinois, very interesting question, because yesterday on drive, just before we closed down, we came past an area where there's a single baobab tree. And now baobabs are incredible trees. They're one of the longest living trees. There's a lot of speculation as to the age of some of the very large baobabs that do exist. There's also a record, some people have written books about the last remaining large baobabs. There's some famous baobabs in the world. For those of you who don't know, the baobab is Africa's equivalent of, say, the sequoias, the giant sequoias of California, in terms of girth, not necessarily height, but certainly in terms of girth, as these most magnificent giant trees. And well, the single baobab that we have here on Thornybush, well, there might be others, but this one that we have here close to camp is only there because it was planted at some point in time. Judging by the age, it's very difficult to judge a baobab's age. One that has been planted in a person's garden, or one that has been, so I'm not going to go very far down here. This is a road I love to drive just a little bit, and then I like to reverse, only because it doesn't go anywhere, but it might just have tracks crossing. But depending on the amount of water a baobab receives, that kind of determines how fast the baobab can grow. And So you always get an artificial size out of baobabs. I've been in places where in gardens there are baobabs that are huge, but they've only been there for 50 years, whereas in the wild, a baobab that is only growing through natural rainfall is perhaps a fraction of the size. So the baobab here is in an area where there's an old homestead. Along with the baobab there are jacarandas and flamboyants, both alien South American trees. There are a bunch. There's also Natal mahogany that might have been naturally occurring, because it could be that Natal mahoganies you might find them here, are further south though. But there are no natural baobabs this far south. The southernmost baobab in the Kruger National Park is somewhere near Satara, and the most southernmost baobabs outside the Kruger National Park are just here in a little town called Hoedspruit. And a couple of big ones. In fact, there's one just outside Hoedspruit that has a pub, a bar inside it, and there's another one that's near a town called Zanine. People I know, they have one there that also is so big it has a bar built into it. A lot of baobabs become hollow on the inside through parasitism, through insects eating it, and elephants gouging out holes. There's a famous baobab up in Kasane in northern Botswana that was a jail once upon a time. They put bars into it, and it actually became a prison, a temporary prison, to hold prisoners until they could be transported down to Gaborone, or Gaborone as it is called. But baobabs, not necessarily on a decline. When you go further north from here into Zimbabwe and Zambia, up into Tanzania and Kenya, especially parts of Tanzania that I've been in, because I can really mostly only talk about the areas that I've spent a lot of time in, where I've done some considerable walks and drives in wilderness, walks in wilderness areas, drives in semi-wilderness areas, and seen some magnificent specimens of baobabs. One thing that is evident is that it's very hard to find young trees. And part of that is because a young tree for the first 50 years doesn't really look like a baobab. And you have to recognize the leaves. The other thing about it is the leaf, if you know the difference between a simple leaf and a compound leaf, simple leaf is basically that it is a single leaf, whereas a compound leaf is one leaf that's divided up into smaller parts known as leaflets. And a baobab is essentially what we call a digitate compound leaf, and it actually has 5 to 7 fingers on it, hence the name digitate. Now I wonder, these guys came up here, it looks like it. There were tracks over there of them. These are this anti-poaching patrol that we saw. I'm still looking for elephant tracks. Okay, we'll cross the river at the next crossing. We'll come round to this crossing. Have a look. Maybe do a little bit on that side of the river. Yeah. So it is hard to find young baobabs, especially because that digitate leaf it starts off with only one. As a young tree, for the first 20 years, you only find one leaf. And perhaps a lot of people are looking for this young tree that has this 3, 5, or 7 fingered leaf. And it'll only get 5 fingers after about 20 years, or even 3 fingers at about 20 years, and then it only has a 5-fingered hand, I guess you could say, once it's a lot older. And then like really, really old baobabs, you might find a 7-fingered leaf. In fact, the name baobab comes from, or rather the scientific name is Adansonia digitata, which is reference to its digitate leaves. So there's a possibility that elephant populations in some areas are hammering new growth of baobabs. But it's not only baobabs. I've noticed another phenomenon of not only baobabs but other very large trees, most of them riparian, most of them that grow along rivers. A dearth of young trees under a couple of 100 years old. You find very, very big ones, and you might find relatively young ones that haven't really been affected by browse or elephants, things like that. So it's kind of difficult to take a snapshot of what we have now and make an assumption of whether these trees are on the decline or not, because we're talking about cycles of thousands of years, and we've probably only been studying them for a couple of hundred, so it's very, very hard to make an accurate statement or to say something with any conviction that baobabs are on the decline. There's certainly beautiful forests, baobab forests, in places of Tanzania where I've done walks and overnight walking safaris. Some of the reserves and national parks up there, fantastic trees. If you come to Africa, you've got to make sure you get to see a baobab, and you've got to hug a baobab. Speaking of hugging a baobab, I have some friends who have a lodge just near here. Part of their property actually comes into Thornybush. They're just opposite Thornybush, a little place called Kamkula. And my godson there is a bush baby called Simon. I'm his godfather. I'm the godfather of a bush baby. And they've got a couple of baobabs in their garden, really lovely big ones. Too big, you would think, to have been planted by a human, because there haven't been people there for that long. But because they water the gardens, they are close to the Kasiri River, so they have access to a lot of water. And so these baobabs have an abnormal sort of growth rate. Now, this is quite a sticky crossing. Quite steep. I hope you can enjoy this. We're lucky. We've got a couple of crossings here on the Timbavati River, and for me it's just so much fun crossing. An excuse to get across the river. Oops.
Oops, indeed.
You still there, Brian?
I am still here, barely holding on.
Oh, okay. I suppose I should continue. Hey?
A little bit more than a 45-degree angle.
Yeah, it's quite steep. I hope the back's not going to catch. Piece of cake. Or should I say piece of pie?
You made it. Lucky. This time. Lucky this time.
Lucky this time. I want to find signs of this pachyderm. We're just going to go back to that other crossing this way. If I could just keep the engine running.
Learn to drive,
I don't want to hit the revs too high. Cloud moving in. Might make a nice sunset. Oh. The only baobabs you really find south of the southernmost wild baobabs are baobabs that have been planted in people's gardens. No natural ones. I have a baobab, but it moves around with me a little bit. It's currently living at Kamkula while I'm here. And then it'll go back home to my place, Mansambula, up in the Timbavati. It's kind of a semi-bonsai. Grass is as high as an elephant's eye. Hope none of you are going to get seasick. Roads are a bit bumpy. I don't think it moves too much on the camera. I don't know.
You can see me moving all over the show.
Yeah, on the back cam.
Shit.
Yeah. Oh, oh. It is quite a mission. Navigate a lot of erosion. You know, a lot of this has actually been caused by that heavy rain we had last year, and it takes a long time for people to get around to fixing a lot of the damage from this exceptional rain we had last year in January. 2 years of rainfall in 18 hours. Washed entire game lodges away. My neighbour had 2 Land Rovers washed downriver, not to mention his entire garage, workshop area, as well as 2 of his bungalows. I mean, washed away, down to the plinth. And a number of lodges and homesteads have actually suffered that fate. It's unfortunate. I guess people build camps and lodges on these lovely riverbeds because of the aesthetics of it and the beautiful views and, of course, the amount of animals that they're likely to see. And they take it on the sort of the highest flood levels in living memory, but we as humans constantly are underestimating the powers of nature, and there's such things as 500-year floods and 1,000-year floods. Well, who knows these things really, but there's speculation that they exist, and consequently every now and then you get the worst flood, the worst hurricane, the worst earthquake. There's always a worst, because we always think that when it's really, really bad, that's the worst that nature can throw at us. But of course it's not, because that's just nature saying, this is what I can do, but I can do better. No sign of my elephant friend. He must have heard me calling yesterday, so he's come closer, but I keep moving around, so he's probably as frustrated with me as I am with him, because he said, okay Mark, you called me, I've come to find you. You aren't where you were when you called me yesterday. I had a very brief chat with the anti-poaching patrol. I should have rather asked, instead of saying, did you see elephant, I should have said, which way did he go? I'll have a look. Well, I'll have a look. Head down this road. Takes us to that lovely group of mud pans and mud wallows. Yeah. Bit of a chilly wind. So if you want to talk to me, it's drivequestions@wildearth.tv. That sends a question to me. Well, not me personally, but to Rob, who will send it to me. Any comments or suggestions or feedback, that's the word. Feedback at, no, drive feedback, forgive me. That's drivequestions@wildearth.tv or drivefeedback@wildearth.tv. Drive radio on, see if there's any chatter. We're back at this lovely wallow. Well, it's actually a marshy area. It's a natural pan area, and it would seem that the saddlebill stork is resident here right now. I must just check if it is a male as well. So we were watching a saddlebill. Yep, thanks Brian. We were watching a saddlebill yesterday, the saddlebill stork, and it would seem that his decided to stick around here. It's probably good feeding. This water is going down quite fast, drying up. I don't know if you can see those mauve, purplish flowers, bluish flowers, just to the foreground, to the left of him. Well, there's one.
Yeah.
Behind that white spot.
Yeah.
Oh, the white spot is also one. Just closing up. A water lily. African water lily. Oh, a nice spot for an elephant. There's more water as we go around. So let's go around and have a little bit more of a look. Looking around. We'll be eating frogs. If there are any fish in here, could be catfish. Aquatic insect. And here Egyptian geese. No. I would expect these guys have seen fresh elephant tracks that I might have seen something here, because he wouldn't have come from the south. He could have only come from the north, coming down this way. And this is going to take us back to the fence line eventually. I don't really want to go to, although there's a lovely river crossing there. And it might mean I have to go through the muddy patch again, which is a shame. Yeah, boy. Hello, Rob. You're not alone. Okay. Well, were we gone or was just the radio gone? Okay. Rob just lost the radio for a minute, or lost us on the radio. So I was just worried that maybe he lost signal. Elephant.
So is there something?
Yeah. Elephant.
I watched in the wind.
Did you?
Yeah.
Of elephant.
No, something dead.
Very, very special person asking a question all the way from Perth, Western Australia. My Uncle Rob. Hello, Rob and Poppet. My real Uncle Rob. My mom's brother, Uncle Rob. There's a nyala. I can hear oxpeckers too. There's something else here because there are oxpeckers around. Oxpeckers are making a noise. And there's another nyala bull to our left. That one's a little bit too deep in. That one's a little bit covered, but I'm going to stop and listen anyway. We'll see if we can pick him up and I can ask. We can talk to. Off he goes. Rob was my Rob. My Rob is my Rob. My brother's Rob and my sister's and my other sister's Rob too. Rob Davis. Rob was asking if the Australian baobabs are any relation to our South African. There's another nyala. This must be this group of bulls that we saw the other day. Bachelor herd. That's quite. Oh, come on, boys. Do you really have to run away? There are two more up there. the Australian baobabs, whether they're any relation to our African baobabs, and very much so. Indeed, they are. I think they're called baobabs in Australia. You'll find that they're most likely the same genus, Adansonia. Not too sure. Actually, Rob, could you find out for me what the genus is of your, and how many species of baobabs you've got? There are at least 14 species of baobabs. There's another one. These oxpeckers, I think these oxpeckers are on these nyala, these bulls, but he's gone behind, he's hiding behind that spike thorn. But yes, 14 is a vervet monkey looking, not really a common thing. We're not going to see it on camera. It's deep in the riverbed, but it was standing up on its hind legs, something that vervets do when they're on the ground. They can't get into a tree to look for danger. They'll actually stand up and look over the grasses. Who knows, after a couple of million years of evolution, they might be bipedal. The idea would be to stop and switch off and maybe listen. There might be a reason why they're a bit nervous and why the nyala are a bit nervous. Sorry, as I was saying, Madagascar has 14 species of baobab. And it's testament to not only the connection between Africa and, I don't think if you can get that vervet in the reeds. I mean,
Let's see.
I might need to go forward a little bit.
No, that's perfect.
The vervet monkey, they're not shouting, so there's no danger as yet. The fact that the continents were once joined, but just testament to how long baobabs have been around. Because when you look at certain species of animals and plants that are common to the different continents that were once joined in what was once called Pangaea, and those that are still around today, this shows how far back they go in history. I believe even there's a termite species, a species of termite in the southern there, look at them standing up. They've got to make their way through these reeds, so they get very nervous. I'd be nervous walking through these reeds as well, but not for the same reason that they'd be nervous. They're nervous because of leopard. I'd be nervous because of buffalo. Or a lioness with cubs. But there's a termite species in the southern tip of Australia, around the Sydney area, whose only relative is a species of termite that's on the southern tip of Africa. The other thing, of course, is all the geological formations, the subterranean, the tectonic plates, and geological data that you can pick up of certain rock formations, certain rock types, that when you map them, how it shows you how all the continents once fitted together because of certain rock that are found in the same continents, and once they've split apart, how they would have been together. Very, very interesting. Reminds me, I must get that book back from Tanzania. So, let's go. Nice to hear from you, Rob. I'm glad you're with us. I'm probably quite late in Perth right now. Middle of the night, in fact. Antenna. Go down. This is from an elephant, but it's old. Damage. Pardon? Can't get it. Right, let me stop. Suppose it's not easy doing that while I'm driving. I'm not picking up any sign of this tachyderm. I really want to go up to that fence, so I'm going to turn around. Go back as fast as you can. Head up to that big little mud wallow that's close to where our leopard was, and start doing a few loops and things around there. Have a look and see if we can find the tracks. Maybe she's come out of there. This kind of weather is easy for a cat to move in. Cats essentially don't want to move too much in the heat. It's difficult. It's not difficult for them so much, but in terms of energy expenditure, it's a waste. It's using energy that they need. Hunting takes up so much energy, and believe it or not, as much as one thinks of the predators as these powerful creatures that kill other animals, they're not very successful when it comes to hunting. They can't be. I mean, it just can't happen. Again, that leadwood, the smallest of leadwood branches are going to hook it up. We could go past a tambuti and it'd be soft. Our antenna at the back on a little clip, and it has to be able to unclip if there's a branch, otherwise it'll break off, and then we're done for. Some of these overhanging branches just brush past, but some of these trees are so hard that they knock it out. So on hot days, the cats have to conserve energy, and one of the reasons why, when you come to Africa, a lot of the time that you're going to watch cats, that you're going to be visiting with cats, they're going to be sleeping. Lions sleep 20 hours a day. But in cooler temperatures like this, it's not using so much energy. You see, it takes so much energy to cool down that it's easier to just lie in the shade and sleep belly up, or lie down panting. They don't sweat. They don't have sweat glands. So like a dog, they pant. Helps to regulate body temperature. They don't have to do it in this weather. And it doesn't take that much energy to move around, as well as the fact that when it does get colder, it would take too much energy to physically keep warm by sitting still, so they move around to help keep warm. Some hyena tracks here. Relatively fresh elephant dung, but it's not fresh enough. A few days ago. Excuse me. Oxygen to the brain. It's a vehicle. Marcus and Emma. Oak Creek Crossing. Beautiful light on that saddle bull now.
Yeah.
Get it between these two. I'm going to move so that he can come past, so he can continue on his drive. Hi, John. Hi, Marcus. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, and you?
Yeah, we're very well, thank you.
Good.
Yeah. Not bad.
Okay, enjoy your drive.
Yeah.
Aku ni lem kau saya ing. Untuk lilin pulit. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, that answers that question. Did you pick up Rob's?
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, we this vehicle might have been different because that was Marcus, but when we do pass a vehicle, we keep the camera off of the guest vehicle. Just a message from that guide to say that he followed up on the tracks of my leopard from this morning, and she's crossed through into Thornybush Safari Lodge, which is next door. She's found her way under the fence. A lot of these animals don't really bother with the fences. Some of them get under it. I should actually phone Ryan and tell him. Rob's telling me there are a lot of questions from viewers wanting to know the main differences between Thornybush and the Juma, where the live drives used to be, the differences in vegetation and things. I could sit here and I could wax lyrical, I could go on and on about things, but I think the best is to show you, and I think one of the primary differences we've just seen is this Thornybush River. We didn't have a river like that at Juma. Vegetation is very much the same to a large extent. Where it is going to differ is in a place like this riverbed, this Thornybush River. There are trees that are along this river that we wouldn't have found in Juma because it's too far north from the Sand River and the Sabi River. So there will be tree species here. The one animal that we might have here that we're not likely to see because of the riverine area that we have is the thick-tailed bush baby. But other than that, pretty much the same. The animals that are here are the same animals that we're going to get there. The primary difference, of course, between here and Juma is the fact that this is a self-contained game reserve. It's very large, but it is self-contained as opposed to Juma being open to the Kruger National Park in a much larger area, giving a lot more freedom of movement. Thornybush being self-contained requires different management techniques. But most of the trees that we have here, in fact, it's maybe a little bit denser than Juma in places, and in some places, like some of these guarri bush forests, we didn't have anything like that. We had the guarri bush there, and there were some areas like around Twin Dams area. There were some areas where there were little thickets of guarri, but nowhere on the scale of what there is here. I mean, here we have huge forests of guarri bush. There are still this silver cluster leaf, which I have just here on my right. There are still a lot of the same things. There are some trees that are here that we didn't have in Juma. There are some trees here that have come that are on the southern limit, and you find them north of here but not south of here. And there are some trees that this becomes the northern limit of those trees, and you don't really find them much further north from here. So they will be common species of that, as with those in Juma. But the only way that I can truly answer that, and for you to really get a feel for it, is for you to spend the next 3 months with us, twice a day. Skip work if you have to. I better not say that. I was going to talk about school. But instead of skipping school, get your teachers to follow us on your... So join us from your classroom. Get your teachers to put us up on a big screen. tell the principal it's educational, and you can have a biology lesson from me. I'll give you can send me questions. I'll give you a live biology lesson. Don't ask me to dissect any frogs or pull wings off grasshoppers. I won't do that. But I'll certainly try and show you some wonderful toys. I call them toys. They're actually insects and spiders and reptiles. Not going to see too many of those because it is the dry season. It is getting a little bit chilly for them. But there are a few around. If we have a nice hot day, the reptiles will be out. There's still a few insects. There are a lot of grasshoppers. They'll be here throughout the dry season. And believe it or not, there are still golden orb spiders. The last of the die-hard golden orbs that are hoping to still maybe lay eggs. And the weather hasn't killed them off yet. So it's only really something that we can see over time. Also, we haven't really covered much ground of late. So it's something that I'm still discovering myself in terms of what the differences are. And for me, it's not only the differences between Juma and here, but other parts of the Sabi Sand that I've lived in, the central Sabi Sand, the southern Sabi Sand. I've done extensive walking in the Manyeleti, which is further east from here. Plus, I have spent the better part of the last 4 decades just north of here in the Timbavati, where my home is at the moment. And I'm going to compare that also with all these other places that I've lived. The Okavango Delta, the Lower Zambezi, in Zimbabwe and Zambia, the national parks and game reserves of Tanzania and Kenya that I've spent time in. And throughout it all, there are similarities and there are differences. And for me, it's a wonderful thing to be in an area, to find something new, as well as to see how it fits in with everywhere else that I've been, to put in another piece of the jigsaw puzzle of African wildlife for my piece of Africa and what my brain holds in terms of what in my mind rather is the wildlife and the natural areas of Africa and how it all fits together. Things like saddlebull stork. Everywhere I've been I've had saddlebull stork. But they obviously have different feeding methods because they have different aquatic environments to deal with it, to deal with finding food. You could say that this little patch of water that we've got here, you just take one little half acre of this little patch of water, could be in Zambia, it could be in Botswana, it could be in a national park in Tanzania. There's very little to say that this little patch of water and this little wetland area is South Africa. Because what we're seeing here is kind of what you might find elsewhere. It's what else there is that's around it, and how everything else interacts, and how all the other pieces fit together in this little environment that we're going to be discovering over the next 3 months. And I hope you're all going to join me for that. And now, before I bore you too much, we're going to find something. I guess we've lost chance of following up on that leopard. She's got to come back, I'm sure. There's not much at Timbavati Safari Lodge other than a couple of warthog that mow their lawn and some daku and things. I've got a relatively small area. I'm quite friendly with the owners. They've come to stay with me at my place up in the Timbavati called Mansabula. I've stayed there a couple of times. I've had dinner there a few times. It's not a game lodge like we have in the reserves. It's on its own little property, and they don't really do much in the way of game drives on their piece of land. They have these wonderful vehicles that they take people on open safaris into Kruger, day trips into Kruger National Park, and maybe up onto the escarpment, what we call the panorama route, which is really beautiful, going up the escarpment to the Blighter River Canyon and waterfalls and all the sites that can be seen up there. Maholo Rehab Rehabilitation Center. Very big lodge. They get big groups coming in. It's quite a big, it's almost like a big hotel. Very well done. Very well managed. And the people who own it are the McGurks, which is quite funny because my Uncle Rob in Perth, who called me earlier, sent me an email. Since I was born, Rob has called me McGurk. I still have to find out from him where it came from. And one of my friends of the McGurks, his name is Mark McGurk. How weird is that?
Well, that's where the McGurk name comes from.
No, They're new friends. I've only known them for the last 2 years, 3 years. But my Uncle Rob doesn't know them. And they are, well, Irish origin. Tony's from Ireland. The boys were born here. And their sister. Ryan and Mark. But Mark McGurk. And my name is Merk and my uncle used to call me No, my name's Mark. Change the subject. Change of subject. Yeah, convoluted. Yes. I don't think everybody wants to know about what my uncle used to call me. Interesting snake track. Now snakes, this is a snake track that we've just gone past. Snakes don't really hibernate here. We don't get the really cold temperatures that require them to hibernate. They become a lot less active. Certainly they estivate, or I suppose is the better term to use for it. But I've seen, even in the middle of winter, I've seen snakes moving around, or even just poking their heads out of a hole in a tree to catch the morning sun, not really being very active. But it's this time of the year when it's starting to get cold that the last of the active snakes are around. The other day, just before new moon, I was doing a game drive in Salati and there were a lot of snake tracks and we had rain the next day. This cold front coming in, who knows, it should be bringing some moisture. It might be why there's snakes moving about. Because after the rain, if we do have rain this time of year, after the rain the temperature will plummet. And the other thing is that snakes want to try and catch that last big meal before they estivate, before they go into that sort of dormant phase. So this is the one big difference between this part of Thornybush and Juma. There's this lovely wide riverbed. I'm expecting, I'm hoping, I'm sure that once it starts drying out in the next month or so to the north, the elephants are going to be moving down here, and the elephants are going to be using these reed beds quite extensively in the dry season. There's still so much water. We had some really good rain just before new moon and through April. So there's still so much water and mud and grazing, and it's green. Look at it. I mean, to have it this green in mid-May is almost unheard of. I can't remember when it's been so lush, so late in the season, or so early in the season. Depends on which season you're talking about. A long time ago, before we came on the scene, built roads and towns and villages around here. This was all part of the same ecosystem as Juma. Elephants that might have been around the Juma area probably would have come to this river, which was either this or going down to the Sabi or the Sand rivers. It's not vastly different. The one thing that makes it a little bit difficult to answer probably is because over the last maybe century or so, different levels of management have caused the bush to grow in a different way, I suppose. In some ways, the areas like it here in Thornybush, where there haven't been as many elephants as say, or it's been closed off. I mean, in areas like Juma as well, where those places were all, this is one place we got to unhook with the antenna. Still not finding anything from an elephant or lion. We'll go up onto this ridge and then come back down. Yeah, sort of. Try again. A long time ago, a lot of these properties were self-contained, and so the owners of the properties had different ideas of not only felt, what we call felt management, but ideas on utilizing the property, utilizing the land. In some cases, some of these places were cattle farms, and being a cattle farm in a confined space caused overgrazing. Overgrazing has resulted in certain species of plants, a large number of which are alien species, to proliferate in some of these overgrazed areas. And that's why in some places, under some of the large marula trees, under some of the large trees where you would have had herds of cattle congregating in the heat of the day, these are places where the soil was so disturbed it has become ideal places for some of these aliens and some of these unpalatable grasses and really not very good plants in terms of wildlife to grow and to flourish, and they've spread from there. Things like this red star zinnia that we've got, although I'll show it to you as one of my flowers of the day for the ladies. It is a pretty flower, but it's not an indigenous flower. It's an alien invader, and it's what we would class even as an aggressive alien invader that has become prolific. I've even got it at home now. First time ever 2 years ago, zinnia is occurring, and now there's so many. The blackjack from South America, another weed called khakibos. Oops. The khakibos has now become quite sought after because they can take an extract from it and make an insect repellent. It's become quite sought after in the pharmaceutical field. No, nothing going out of range, but when Rob's trying to talk to me, I'm just hearing a lot of electronic buzz rather than him. Give me a radio check, Rob. And this road that we're on now could be a road in Juma. We've got jackalberry, silver cluster leaf. This could be anywhere near Juma Dam. This particular patch of bushveld could be that road that goes up to past that lovely big old, what was that road called? Shortcut, no, cut line, one of the cut lines.
As you mentioned the other day, the drive was really good.
Sickle bush, silver cluster leaf, African wattle, magic guarri, all the same species. Here's a roundleaf teak. So you could cut this out and plonk it in Juma and put a piece here and it'd be exactly the same. In fact, the area that we used to go on Gallagher Shortcut, this is exactly like Gallagher Shortcut. I'd be hard pressed to find something that is here right now that doesn't occur 50 kilometers, not even. Where are we? Got about 30 kilometers to Manyeleti and maybe another 15, so maybe 50 kilometers southeast of us is where Juma is. We're on the extreme western boundary of the Kruger National Park. I think this still falls under Limpopo, not Mpumalanga. I can't even show you a bird at the moment. And I heard a chin spot batter snapping its wings a second ago, but a bird this big, 20 yards in, is not going to be something to look at right now. So please be patient with us with regards to... I can almost hear you, Rob. Above the electronic buzz, there's an electronic buzz, but try again. One day, we have a thumb there. Switzerland. Hello, Denise. Another old friend, Denise. Switzerland. Denise, who has also spent time here in South Africa in the bush. Sure, I'm missing it terribly. Welcome back, Denise. Welcome back to our drives. Now, that's a gardenia, funny shaped gardenia. Very wife. Lucky it flew away and didn't fly to me. Denise wanted to know if it's true that the difference between a male saddle-billed stork and a female saddle-billed stork is that the male is taller. I've never considered that a difference, Denise. I have seen the two together often. I've actually got some nice footage. Back home I've got a lovely little dam. It's not a big little dam, it's a little dam. And I once had a pair of saddle bulls sitting there. Well, they were there and they were preening. And I got 1 hour's footage of them preening. But it's really grainy footage. It's a really old camera. And I'm trying to think, and I'm going to look in my book shortly at sizes to see whether the difference in size is of any consequence. The main difference between the male and female saddle bull is that the male has a yellow eye. She has got a dark eye. And then there's the wattles as well, I think. Yellow wattles on the chin. Birds of southern Africa. Birds of southern Africa. Let's do this quickly. Storks. Saddle-bull stork. 145 centimeters. You know what? I'm wrong. I can be wrong. I can be wrong any time of the day, but as long as I know that I'm wrong. And I'll tell you I'm wrong. Otherwise you won't believe a word I say. But I'm wrong. The male is the one with the dark eye. The female's got the yellow eye. Forgive me. Forgive me. He's got the brown eye. Female's got the yellow eye. And she doesn't have the wattle. So I was right about the wattle. I was wrong about the eyes. But this book doesn't have a lot of information. Doesn't give me anything about size in terms of dimorphism. It just gives me a standard size. So I can't answer that one, Denise, whether size is of any relevance. You can say that for almost all the birds of prey, owls and other raptors, as far as the raptors are concerned, the females are always bigger than the males. Nobody's been on this road for some time. And there are a lot of gardenias. Here's another one. There's another one. Lots of gardenia. And baby jackalberry. When these gardenias, gosh, in summer, when these gardenias are flowering, you drive down here, must be incredible. That's antenna. On the wattle. Impala, 2 impala, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The breeding herd. I've got a herd of impala that I'm a little bit. I see this. This is what happens in the wind. They kind of bunch together and they're all behaving rather nervously. If we can see them, you'll notice that their tails are not flicking. We've just got to drop the antenna quickly coming under this acacia. There are a couple of acacias here, funny enough, actually, that don't occur at Juma. Hello, children. They're very tightly bunched together. With this wind, it makes them nervous. The trees make the noise, and it makes it hard for them to sense danger. So it's not really a consistent wind. It's kind of swirling a lot, and so they're very tightly bunched together. And hello to Mike in Arizona. Hey Mike. I thought it must be Mike dead. So. How are you, Mike? Good to have you with us. Mike wanted to know the difference between a cut line and a pan. Cut line's essentially, a cut line is an old boundary. A cut line is old boundary, not necessarily that had a fence, but a straight road that was an old boundary between two different properties, or two different portions of a property. A long, long time ago, turn of the last century, a long time ago, and the government started dividing up all this land, thinking that people would buy it and farm it or bring in cattle and things. They had these land surveyors, or these, what do you call them? Those guys that go out and map places, and they just put in stakes in the ground, and then they draw maps, and they just draw straight lines between properties, and they say, well, and then they'll take an atlas from the west of the world, and they'll open up a page, and then they'll just copy names from the atlas. So we've got places like Java and Berlin and all sorts of funny names from all over the world that are names of some of these properties, even some from Scotland, some from England. And I'm digressing, but essentially a cut line is one of those places, one of those lines, very straight road that used to be a fence line, or it was a physical boundary between two humanly man-made lines between two man-divided properties. I don't know how better to explain it. As opposed to a pan is actually like a mud wallow, a water hole, or a naturally occurring dam that has come about by animals wallowing in the mud over centuries and eventually creating a permanent water hole that either retains its water through the dry season, or in most cases dries up in the dry season and fills up with water in the summer. Being very, very hot, is where all the thick-skinned animals come and lie in the mud or bathe in the mud and take mud away. So every season these little pans get bigger and bigger and bigger. So a cut line is more a road, and a pan is more a single little place. If that answers your question, Mike. Yeah, and we're going to have to try and make our way back across the river to do that.
Yeah.
But I've noticed the only place we could try, the places on the other side of the river, we've got a signal shadow on that western slope where we will see sunsets, as well as a power line that brings power to the camp, so it's not very pretty. We've got found a nice place for a sunrise tomorrow, where we can, if we can leave early enough. But I don't know, we're going to have to check on how signal is going to fare now, because we're getting quite far into this part of the northern bank of the Thornybush River, and once we start going down the northern slope of this, we will lose signal. It's time to find a road that goes off and heads back down to the river. All I've got is a pointing road. I want to hit an east-west cut line, which should be just up ahead of us. Then we'll maybe go east and then back south. Giraffe have been here. Yep. So this would be a cut line, because it could be, because it's so very straight, quite wide. Oops. Chill in the air. Let's drop down to about 18 degrees. This on my right, we can go back and I can show it to you in the front. This is a pan in the making, Mike. This is a puddle of water that maybe started as on the road, might not have. It may have started with merely an elephant footprint collecting water and then water coming to wallow, and after a while big enough for a buffalo to come and wallow, and even now big enough for an elephant to come and throw a couple of trunkfuls of mud. So the kilograms of mud that gets taken away from a little pan like this. Every summer as they start drying up. Another thing I would like to tell you that I haven't told you yet is that along with the they're wild drives, but along with the live wild drives that we're doing, we're also filming a series, a 3D series, like I had. It'll be a 4-part series, and we have a crew back at camp. That's Andy and Aaron and Leon that are largely busy with that, is putting this series together. They've pretty much done episode 1. I'm going to not tell you too much about it because you're going to be part of it, because a lot of what we're doing now is going to be cut and edited and used in the series, and we want to find animals. Believe me, we need to find animals to use in the series. We can't make a series about the kind of things we've seen in the last couple of days. We need a lot more. But it's early days. It's only our 2nd day broadcasting. It is also, well, it's only the beginning. Sure, yeah. Yeah, always. These, you're going to note, you'll see for the next 3 months, Brian, in this part of the world, you're going to, not regret, but you're going to rue the southern facing roads, because most of the time we've either protected by the bushes on the side if we're doing east and west, and if we're driving towards the north, because we have this prevailing wind coming in mostly from the south and the southeast. So when we're driving south or southeast, we're driving straight into the cold wind, and you feel it. There's got to be snow on the mountains in Lesotho, and perhaps even in the Cape.
How cold do you think it's going to get, actual factor-wise?
Sure. 5.
Okay, that's not too bad.
5 or maybe a bit below.
In Kalahari, we were facing -8 wind chill.
Okay, no, I don't think we're going to get -8 wind chill. I think I would become a block. Oh,
Yeah.
I think you'd have to chisel my hands off of the steering wheel afterwards. I think if we went over a very heavy bump, if it was like that, I would just break up like a block of ice. Giraffe with you. We haven't seen giraffe yet. All in good time. All in good time. Yeah, look at this front coming now. It's going to be, might be a little bit of rain.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just the cold. I'll do a weather check south of here later and find out what's happening to the south of the south of us and see what's on the cards for us over the next few days. We're not seeing animals because, it's not because I'm not taking you to them, it's not because I can't find them. Believe me, if there was something I would find it. It is because there's just not much around at the moment in this little part of the world. Something one learns about living in Africa is that there's seasonal movement and that one day it can be great, especially with an approaching front. When there's an approaching front, it changes the behavior considerably. This is a bit of an awkward. I'm just going to go around it completely rather than try and bounce through that erosion. But in this way, they're not going to find much in the open. They're going to be in thicker bush. They're going to be out of this wind. Oh, running. See, this is nervous in this wind. There was a zebra. Now I have been down here because this takes us back to that crossing, and it is an awkward road. There's also some impala in there, also up deep in the bush. I had roads like this at home that were in that one rainfall, that 2-day rain of January the 18th last year, eroded as much as this. So it's probably from that heavy rain. And then of course we had some pretty heavy rains this year. And this kind of erosion is difficult to fix. If anything, the road, you can't repair it. The best thing to do with a road like this is to close it off and pack it tightly with wood so that you're stopping the water flow going down it. Build gabions out of wood so that it catches not only the water and slows the flow down, but it catches grass seed, it catches a lot of seed, and eventually these gabions form little dams and things, and the backup water helps to establish new growth. Sediment settles into these deep areas, these deep dongas, gullies, and you can rehabilitate it slowly over time. Put in another road that doesn't go straight down the slope, that isn't likely to cause such bad erosion in the future. This is an awkward one. This is the big drift, the big branch. Buffalo here, fairly recently. Oh. Pardon? Sorry, dude. Those hair elastics are working quite well.
Yeah.
Any cheetah at Thornybush? Number of questions coming through. As far as I know, they're cheetah. I can't imagine we're going to see any cheetah down here. It's way too thick for them. We'll have to head up to the northern parts. And I'm hoping to chat to some of the guides here at Thornybush over the next week or so to get better idea about what the game movement has been like, and it's really the guides that can tell me this. We've got to get ourselves into some sort of routine. We've had rather a busy time just getting up and running and just making sure that we can go live and we can do what we're doing now. And there have been a few things that have needed to be done. So in a few days' time, when we're well on our way, I can maybe find out how to meet up with some of the guides and find out also when the next guides rangers meeting is, and joint rangers meetings. And really, it's much like it was at Juma. That is beautiful. And I can find out more about where the cheetah tend to hang out and stuff like that. It's a wispy sunset. The blacksmith lapwing's complaining. There's a pan here. Let's go and have a look, sorry. Let's see what. What I'm puzzled about, maybe they've headed further west, was the fact that we heard those lion last night. Just at the Saddlebull stork pan. But those blacksmith lapwings were making a noise, and the geese were complaining. Just happened to have come back. There's a grey heron here now. The stork's not complaining about anything. Grey heron joining the stork in frogging. And the fish eagle. That might be why that's what the noise. That's what the fuss was about. And it also looks very uncomfortable on the branch, this fish eagle. It looks like it's only just landed, which would account for the alarm calls. And above the fish eagle to the right is something else that's being dive bombed by airmark babblers. Goshawk, looks like maybe a gabar goshawk. You can only see its silhouette. Can you see the babblers at the top? The little ones. Just below them is a goshawk sitting there. I think it might be a gabar. And the babblers, and there's a drongo as well. There's a fork-tailed drongo. It's also, she does the two drongos at the top now. Babblers are complaining. It's a nice bird life. In front of me, we've got a hawk and a sterin. A sterin and a hawk. I mean, a stork and a heron. Maybe it's not a goshawk. It's hard to tell from here. It's a bit small for that African hawk eagle, based on the fish eagle sitting there, which is a lot bigger. I thought there might have been a other predator, but there is a predator the lapwings were shouting at. Both these both of these birds of prey. Okay, where are you looking now?
I'm at the fish eagle.
Okay. Unfortunately, the other raptor is a little bit hard to identify from this angle. But also, I want to get going. We want to cross the river before we have to close down. Because I've got that water, and the heron, don't move, heron. If I go forward and disturb the heron, I'll turn around somewhere else. Heron's getting nervous. Hello, Peggy in Montana. Peggy in Montana wants to know if there are any eland in the area. To my knowledge, there are eland here, or there were eland here in Thornybush, Peggy. I do recall a story, in fact, I think it was Penny Legg who said that they translocated about 50 eland here to Thornybush, but that the lion had got a lot of them because they came from an area that was a predator-free area. But once this is something I'll have to find out from the guides. Not sure. I know they did have eland here, and it's something we'll have to look for. Tracks, the animals themselves. Goodbye, birds. Good night. This is one of the fish eagles we hear calling from camp all the time. Really a lovely thing to be working in camp and hearing a fish eagle. We used to have occasionally at Juma Dam. And where I am at home, I get fish eagles in the distance calling from the Shlarulumi River, which is now holding water all year round for the first time in my living memory. Because of the amount of, oh look at that, it's even getting better. Our sun especially came here so that we could show you sunset and drive back to the sunset. We'll just spend a little bit of time driving to sunset. It's also going to go a little bit north before the solstice. So this is something to remember. This road is, though we can't see the horizon, it's going to go behind the mountains soon anyway. But this little spot would be nice for a sunset days to come. Yeah. Would you like me to stop?
Please.
Of course. I forgot my camera in my Land Rover. That's pretty. I thought it might be going into thicker cloud, but it's actually opened a little bit from earlier. Welcome to Africa, everyone, and a lovely African sunset. Yeah, there's someone, but that camp is here. Steve's camp. It's just across here.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
I wonder if let's cross the river. We might be able to get something up the river with some reflection in water before it disappears. It's going to pop out. There's going to be a hole in the cloud now too that it's going to pop out of. Mast through the gate. Oh, maybe. Where the leopard's tracks were today. Oh, look at that. I'm going to have to adjust the camera because forward a little bit. How's that?
That's great.
Okay, this is my sunset that I owe you, everyone, because we haven't managed to get one yesterday or the day before. No, there wasn't a day before.
No, only yesterday. I haven't been here that long.
You know, a few days ago the sun would have been in that gap.
Yeah.
But in about, let's see, we've got about, it's going to the solstice and then it's coming back, and we'll still be here when it comes back after the solstice. So the sun's just moving a little bit more north along the horizon, and then just after the solstice when it starts moving back to the southern hemisphere, when we have our summer coming back before we even have winter. That will be along, we'll keep track of it. There's that raptor that was in the tree with the fish eagle.
Oh yeah.
It's actually a bit big for a gabar. Rob's saying a lot of people are asking the area of Thornybush. I'm assuming the size of the area. It is, as far as I know, I can get more accurate for you, but roughly around 30,000 hectares. At 2.2 acres a hectare, 65 odd, call it 65,000 acres. So, well, about 3,000 square kilometers. Let me think, does that sound right? 10 by 30, 300, no, maybe 300 square kilometers, not 3,000. Goodbye, sunshine. See you tomorrow. No, not you, goodbye. It's goodbye to the sun. That must have been nice.
Very nice.
Okay. On with her. End of the day, like today, just makes it more exciting because it is another day like today tomorrow. And I don't sleep too well because I can't wait for the new day to begin, to explore more of this little part of the world. And I'm hoping you're going to be joining us again tomorrow to explore some more. And no, those are not the beeps of old. We're not going to have those kind of things anymore. Excuse me. We're not going to have that beep beep that tells us that it's time to say goodbye. Those are just beeps to tell you that the camera stopped recording. Every now and then Brian pushes buttons These pushes buttons for the jig aid. And that gets different cameras recording so that we can record footage for the series that we're filming. No, that we're filming. And it's just this, you hear one beep and that's when they start recording, and then you hear the beep 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 that tells you that it's not recording anymore. The smell of wood smoke, we're getting close to camp. Hello Vicky, a message from Vicky, who's just moved back to Texas after being in Africa for a couple of years and suffering from serious withdrawal. And Vicky saying that thanks for the live drive and helping her settle back in and helping her deal with missing Africa, and that the sunset was a little cherry on the top. I'm glad that we can improve your life a little bit, Vicky. That's what it's all about. Bringing Africa to you in your home, wherever you are. Our little piece of Africa. That's quite a change, I suppose. Africa to Texas. Depends on where in Texas. Let's see if we can see some of these impalas. They're not going to move off. Nice herd of impala. Stay there, children. Don't go anywhere. Bit of a rating on the gearbox. Stop. Stop. All of you stop. Look this way. You're on camera. Hello children. Such pretty antelope. Especially when they're bunched up like that and all the markings come together. The black ears and the black stripes down the rump. And the black stripe on the tail.
There's the big boy at the back.
Yeah. The dominant ram. Making sure that we don't want access to his ewes. Graham, I made your car dirty. Very dirty.
This side's okay.
Yes.
This side's fine.
It gives it character actually. I think Leon might like. You picked that up? I think everybody did. That came across very loud. That's why you're right here it came. Did it come through your earphones?
I sort of get it. I can. Let's just keep quiet for a sec. No, not hearing anything now. Thank you, Impala.
So did you hear Brian? I mean, Rob. What were you listening for?
Trying to see if I could hear anything else.
Oh,
Snoop around.
indeed, with the microphones. I used to have, in Yakavanga, I used to have one of those headphones on a dish mic.
Oh, nice.
It wasn't a very expensive one. And then I left. I don't know what my brother did with it. Disappeared.
Yeah, I was listening to see if you could hear any animals around.
Yeah.
It's actually a nice way when we searching for something to stop and can turn up this ambient microphone
Yes.
and listen.
Yeah, because you can. I mean, with that thing, I'd be able to hear not only them walking, I'd be able to hear beetles walking through leaf litter. Let's just continue on this little ridge that we're on at the back of camp. The wildebeest might be around, and here's a herd of wildebeest here. We saw them yesterday with their new calf. That's so unusual. People are asking me, people by the name of Laurie from California, asking about the scent glands. I'm going to see if these impala will let us stop here so that we can pick it up. You can see the scent glands, metatarsal glands on the ankles. Well, not really the ankles, it's actually the lower foot, because the ankle halfway down the leg. But those little black spots make the impala look like they're wearing socks or glands. And Laurie wanted to know if all antelope have that. No, Laurie. I'd have to look it up and go through them all and try and figure out which ones do and which ones don't. As far as I know, it's only impala that have them. I don't think Nyala have them. I'm not sure. Something I'd have to look at. To give you the correct answer, I'd have to look it up. Good night, children. more open up here. Places. But it's not a very large area. And it's I heard something shouting. An alarm call of some sort. It's quite close to the edge of the reserve. Doesn't mean that there won't be animals here. There are elephant tracks here. The leopard would have come through here at some point today. And, no doubt, been everything else here over time. There isn't a really sort of loop network to come around this open area that's attractive. And I'm not too sure when we're going to lose light, so you must...
Well, we've got about 5 minutes left before we wrap up.
Okay.
So that's it.
Lovely glow up there, eh?
Yeah.
Post-sunset glow. Wildebeest are. As I imagine they are not out in the open with this cold wind blowing.
We'll start to take cover quite early.
Yeah. And they normally be out in the open in the evenings because it's safer for them in the open, but with the cold wind coming in, it's considerably cooler than it has been in the last couple of days, and a temperature change like this is very hard for animals to adjust to very quickly, so it takes time to adjust to temperature drops in temperature. This is where I want to be tomorrow morning because we'd have a quite nice sunrise from here.
Yeah.
Get out here early to this little spot with this open area. We ought to get a nice sunrise. More impala up ahead. Yeah, or our wildebeest. Some zebra and impala. And I hope they're getting quite long. I can see the youngsters still in there. I think you can get through there. Got a gap. I can go forward for a different gap. No, because I want to put you in this gap. It's a better gap. Is that better?
You go forward slightly.
Had a question from a friend in Austria. Hello, Sharon. Nice to hear from you. Really nice to hear from you. Sharon is asking if there is a difference. Well, we heard a tinkerbird the other day. Also known, well, used to be known as a tinker barbet. And Sharon wanted to know if there's a difference in the call between the golden, or was it the yellow-fronted and the red-fronted? Very much so. I'm wondering how I will be able to play that for you. Because I might have those calls on tape. Modern digital tape, I mean. I wonder. I'd have to try and figure it out. But they both have a very high-pitched peep. But there is a difference between the two calls. I wonder if there's a description. Where's my bird? There you go. Hello, zebras. A very common posture of zebra to stand like that because they swish their tails in each other's faces. Keep insects out of each other's eyes. Well, this one describes the yellow-fronted as the tink, 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 and the red-fronted as the pop, pop, pop. Also, but as I said, there's just a slight difference between the two. But I think one of the key things about the tinkerbirds is that you don't really get the two in the same place, and they don't ever, even though they might sound alike, you don't get the two species in the same place. Geographically, they're isolated. Pardon? Yes, let's go forward. This tree is, I'll get some ivory. I think I know what this big tree is. Huge tree. Strange leaf. So they're all together in this windy weather. Bachelor herd of impala, zebra, wildebeest, complementing each other, and all looking out, not necessarily for each other, but as long as there are other individuals around you, even of other species, it allows you to feed a little bit more and not have to look up all the time. So as long as there are other species around, and some have good hearing, some have good eyesight, and some are more alert than others, greater chance of survival, apart from the fact that when you're in the middle, the ones on the outside that get eaten. And I think we're getting a little bit too dark. I think it's time for me to say goodbye. Okay. And to sign off, a question on fire from Don, because the film is getting, well, I camera's getting a bit grainy, and as Brian said, we don't have the low light capabilities of previous cameras. We've improved technology, but under the circumstances, using the cameras that we're using, come this time of the evening, we have to sign off. It's getting a bit dark. But just before I go, there was a question from Don about fire, because as we were coming up near camp, downwind from camp, I could smell the fire from camp, and Don wanted to know, since there is a smell of smoke from the fire at camp, will the animals pick it up and then associate it with the wildfire? Wow, nice jump there, Impala. Yes, they will. They know what the... It's like they're jumping right over that wildebeest. Sorry, I get distracted. I'm looking at the camera, and just on the other side of the camera is a wildebeest standing there, and Impala jumping over a log behind it. Makes it look like they're jumping over the wildebeest. But I think animals, one has to give them a lot more credit than that. They know the difference between a contained fire and a wildfire. They are fully aware of how much a wildfire, or how a wildfire spreads and how fast it moves. And if it were a wildfire, it would be on a much larger front than just a contained fire. I guess for them also, if they smell fire and they moved from, let's say, from a contained fire, the camp, all they'd have to do is move a little bit either way and be out of the center. They would pick up that there's no fire upwind from them. Whether they associate it with a campfire or a wildfire is irrelevant. The fact is that they know when there's a fire that is moving and there is danger. There is so many other signs. There are alarm calls. There are things fleeing. There is a fair amount of panic in the air. A lot of birds flying around catching insects. A contained fire doesn't have any of that. And contrary to popular belief, animals are not afraid of fire. They're afraid of getting burnt. But fire has been part of the ecosystem for many, many years. You'll find zebra moving into a burnt area after a fire while there's still smouldering logs. In fact, right after a fire, things like marabou storks, secretary birds, hornbills, fork-tailed drong, a bunch of birds are right there as soon as a fire has moved through an area to pick up insects and things that have been caught by the fire. I guess they also like roasted food sometimes. I mean, I think it's, no, I'm serious, this, I reckon, is it's possibly how we as hominids decided to cook food once upon a time, because we were scavengers, we were not meat eaters per se, and I think at some point in our history we were chasing larger predators off of their kills and stealing their kills, and at some point we might have found, after a particularly bad natural fire, finding that the taste of the charred animal was better than raw and it lasted longer or something. That's how we learned to cook food. I don't think it was the brainchild of one individual somewhere along the line who was eating a raw chunk of meat and thought, oh, can you get that silhouette? No, it's gone.
Yeah.
Sorry, just the silhouette of a giraffe moving behind the zebra. We're not going to see much below the horizon with the camera, but it's some place to start in the morning. I think we'll come straight here in the morning. We'll be with these animals with the sunrise, and we can talk about them some more. Thanks for the question, Don, about the fire. We can have more discussions about that in the days and weeks to come. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you again. I'm looking forward to those of you who are going to be with us all the time that we're going to be here, and the interaction we're going to have. My name is Mark, and Brian has been on camera with me. Rob is back in final control, and with Rob we have the other three guys, Andy and Leon, and it's the team of 6 that make up our Wild Earth crew right now. And this is Africa, where we're going to be for the next 3 months. But goodbye.